In this video, I'm going to be taking 3 logos that my subscribers have sent in and animate them inside of After Effects. Let's jump in. Prior to starting this video, I put a story up on Instagram asking my subscribers to send in logos of theirs that they would want to see animated inside of After Effects. So I had people send me the AI files of their logos, and I broke them all down in Illustrator and exported them all as just white PNGs, so you have a nice clean blank slate to work with. There's one logo that has color in it, and if I were to remove all the color, it would kind of take away from the logo, so I'm going to leave that one as is, but the other 2, they work in grayscale. So here we are inside of After Effects. I'm going to go ahead and create a new composition. We're going to make these 1920 by 1080 to make them just run a little bit easier. We're going to be animating these in 24 frames per second. And let's bring our logo into the scene. So when I first get a logo that I'm going to be animating, I like to drop it into the scene and just kind of go through ideas of what I think might look good for the animation. And in this instance, we have these swirls coming around and then these lines down here. I think it would be cool if each of these lines animated on like this. So to do that, I want to take my logo and break it up into 2 parts. I'm going to duplicate it, and then the bottom one, we're going to call this lines. And the top one, we're going to call this text. Now in the lines layer, we're going to get rid of everything besides the lines. So we're going to just draw a mask around the word podium, and then go into the mask and make it subtract. Then we're going to do the inverse on the text layer, and for that I'm just going to copy the mask, paste it onto our text layer, and change it to add. Now we've got a layer with the lines and a layer with the text. I'm going to go ahead and mute the text layer for now, as we're just going to be working on this lines layer. So again, like how I want this to animate on, I want each of these lines to animate like this and reveal kind of in an offset manner. In order to create this effect, we're going to create what are called track mats. And basically, if you don't know what a track mat is, I have a video on that you can go and check out. Basically, we're going to create our own lines over top of these existing lines, animate them, and then use those as a track mat layer for the original logo. So in this case, I'm using the base logo image as our background, and then we're just revealing it through the animations that we're creating. So let's start by drawing some lines. Since these lines are going to be revealing the PNG below, we have to make sure that the thickness of these strokes cover up the base layer. It's alright if it overlaps because this is a PNG, so you won't even see any of these dark areas, but as long as it covers up the entire thing, we'll be good. So we'll go over here and bump up our stroke until everything is covered and we have no overlaps of any kind. See a little issue here. If you have areas where the logo is poking out like this, just go in and kind of manipulate your stroke to cover up some of those areas. Now that we've got our stroke laid out, we're going to go to add and add an effect called trim paths. And what this does is literally trim the stroke path. And we can do that by going to the end here, and if you just bring that up, it removes the entire stroke from its end. Or if you wanted to animate it the other way, you can go from the start and animate it from the start. In this case, we want the end. Now let's go to 2 seconds and add a keyframe on end. Set this to 100. Then we'll go to our frame 0 and add a keyframe there at 0. Now over the course of the 2 seconds, the stroke will go from 0 completion to 100% completion. Now we can add a little bit of character to this by highlighting both of the keyframes, right-clicking, going to Assistant Keyframe, and clicking on Easy Ease. Now our animation looks a little bit smoother, but we can take that a step further by highlighting these again and clicking on this graph editor here, then highlighting both of our keyframes, We can grab this little handle here and pull this in. And what this does is speed up in the beginning of the animation and then slow out towards the end and eases into 100%. We'll play that back. Looking good. So now for the magic part, we're going to take our lines layer. We're going to go under track matte. We're going to grab this pick whip and drag it up to the shape layer that we just made. Everything just disappeared. This is good. This is what we want. So what this means is that our logo is only being shown wherever the stroke is on top of it. So in the beginning, our stroke is invisible because it's set to 0%. But as we play this animation out, that reveals our logo. And this is an optional step if you want to bring your animation up a little. And this is an optional step if you want to bring your animation up a notch. You can go ahead and click on motion blur, which will turn on motion blur for the entire scene. And now motion blur will be rendered into any movement on screen. So now that that part of the animation is done, let's go ahead and add in our text. So we'll go ahead and turn our text layer back on. And I think for this, all I want it to do is slide up and reveal from behind an invisible line. Let's go on our text and hit P. This will bring up the position. So our lines animate on like this. Probably right about here is where I want the podium text to be fully on screen. So we'll go ahead and add a keyframe. Go back a few frames and we'll drop this down just below this line here. And we'll go ahead and add the easy ease effect to the text as well. A little bit too fast, and we can kind of mess around with these keyframes. Looking good. You're probably thinking, what the heck, this looks stupid just on top of the text there. We're gonna fix that. We're gonna add a new solid. The color does not matter. And drag this up until it's just above this orange line here, right about there. Go to our text layer again, click on the toggle switches to bring back our track matte options, and once again we're going to grab this pick whip, bring it up to the red solid, and now the red solid is acting the same way to the text as our stroke is to the lines. So let's go ahead and play this back. So you could stop right here, but there's another step that I like to take sometimes with certain logos to kind of make them feel a little more interesting than just a linear animation. So we're going to add an adjustment layer on top, and we're going to go up here to our effects and type in posterize time. Grab this effect and drag it onto our adjustment layer. I'm going to set the frame rate to 12 frames per second, and this will give it an interesting animation. Typically when I slow it down like this though, I also want to turn off the motion blur. So there is logo animation 1. So for our next logo animation, we'll go ahead and keep the same settings for our comp, and we'll call this Infuse Wellness. Pull our logo in. So with all these lines in the infused text, I think I want these to be revealed the same way that the podium logo did. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and duplicate our logo. We'll mute the top one. We'll name this bottom one Infuse, and our top one Wellness. So our infused text will just be that, and our wellness text will just be that. Go ahead and create a new shape and get started with making some cool lines for this. Alright, so now that I have all of our text covered up with our stroke layer, we're going to go ahead and add the trim paths effect again. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the other animation. We'll go to 2 seconds and go to the end keyframe and add a keyframe there. Go back to the beginning and set the end to 0. Go ahead and easy ease these and add our animation. Now that's way too fast. I think I want this one to be a bit longer. And I don't think I want it to come in quite so fast. I think I want this one to be more subtle and even throughout the whole animation. Now that we've got our animation done, we'll go back and switch our toggle to see our track mat again. We'll grab the pick whip, drag it up there. And after applying the track mat is when you'll be able to see whether or not you were able to cover up the logo very well. And from the looks of it, it looks like we covered it up pretty good. We'll just play it through and see how the animation looks. I think we are good. Now all that's left to do is figure out how to animate wellness onto here. So I think we're just gonna do a basic zoom in and fade on. We'll click on our layer. We'll hit Y to bring up our anchor point, and we'll put that right in the middle of wellness. So when we scale, it'll scale from the middle. We'll click on our infuse wellness and hit S. This will bring up our scale properties, and we want it to end here. So we'll place our scale keyframe here and go back a couple seconds, and we'll just scale this down to 0. Pretty cheesy animation, but we'll do our same easy ease effect, and I think for this it'll work good to be a little bit quicker in the beginning. To make it not so cheesy by seeing it zoom all the way in from infinity, we'll go ahead and add an opacity keyframe. So hit T for opacity, and we'll go to where we want it to be 100%, so like right here, and then 0. Also, if you have multiple keyframes within one layer, you can hit UU, and it'll show you all of the keyframed items in that layer. This will allow us to change all the timing whichever way we want. So I think I don't want this to come from so far away. So I'm going to delete that keyframe. And we're going to have it scale only from right here. I also think the infuse takes way too long to animate on. So let's go back to our shape layer, which is all of our line animation. And we'll hit U to bring these up. I think I want the animation to kind of start right here. So we'll add a keyframe, delete this first one, and then bring all of these guys back. So the animation will just start right here. Let's also add motion blur to everything. So that concludes our second logo animation. All right, and on to our third logo. It's SJK Productions, and for this one, I kind of want to change it up a little bit and do some three-dimensional stuff and involve some sort of a camera move with it. So I think I'm going to break up each of the letters and kind of have them all slide into place Stranger Things style as the camera is dollying backwards, and then the Productions comes into view, and then we end with this frame that we have here. We're gonna make several copies of it. One will be Productions, one will be SJK, and then the camera. Next, I'm gonna grab all of the anchor points and put them in the middle of each section just to make it easier to manipulate. Now we have all of our elements broken up. Let's go ahead and start animating these letters to see how we want them to end. I'm gonna go let's go 4 seconds in. We're not gonna mess with Productions right now because that's just gonna stay the way it is. So let's grab everything else, and we're going to go into position and add a keyframe. We're gonna go into rotation and add a keyframe. We're gonna highlight all these again, hit U, that'll bring up all of our keyframes. So this is where we want everything to end. Now we can come back to the beginning and begin manipulating everything a bit. thing we can do too is kind of offset some of these, the start animations. And then we'll jump in to our easy ease and grab them all again and do a little bit of tweaking. So now I'm going to pre-comp all of these, and what this will do is put all the animations into its own comp. So now in this comp, it just appears as one video file. So what I can do now is turn our productions back on, make both of these clips 3-dimensional, and then we'll create a new camera, and we'll make it 50mm. We're going to go over here and switch our view to 2 views, and we'll make our left view be the top so we can see the depth of everything here. So one thing, like I said earlier, you want to make sure that you're recreating the logo so that the final form of the logo is what it was to begin with. So this one will be a little bit trickier. We gotta do more work to make sure that the 3D move ends right where the logo should be. So here's where we want it to end. What I'm going to do is bring the logo back into the shot, and this will be our reference for where everything needs to end up. We'll grab our SJK animation, we'll push it back into 3D space. So I'm pushing it further away from our camera. But now since we're further, we're gonna need to scale it up. So I'm gonna turn our reference back on and go to the scale here, and we're gonna scale this up till it fits again. So this is where we want our camera to end. So we're going to go into our camera and hit P. Since this is a 3D camera, we have a third axis to move it in. So we want our camera to end right here in this position. So we're going to go back to the beginning. In this view here, we're going to push it forward in space. Alright, so the beginning of our move has this top of the J right here. So I don't really want that from the beginning, but I don't want to push the camera any further forward in the space. So we can go over here to point of interest and add a keyframe. We want it to end at this point, but at the beginning here, I want it to start pointed upwards just a little bit. Just like that. Then as we play through, everything moves into place as it should. I'm gonna add some easy ease to the movement of the camera. And this one might look cool if we add that posterized time effect like we did on the other one. Let's set it to 15 frames per second. Turn off all of our motion blur. We're gonna have to go back into our animation to turn off motion blur. And if you're not happy with the timing of the animation, you can go back into the original animation and just kind of tweak things in here. I think I want it to be a little bit quicker in the beginning. So that concludes this video of me animating my subscribers' logos. Hopefully you learned something during this video. I don't have a ton of experience in After Effects, but through trial and error and just trying things out, I've learned a lot of techniques over the years. So hopefully I was able to share something with you that was useful. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, let me know down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.